Part 53. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 521. It turned out that after Zuyun hurried back to the valley, he started to draw the talisman. Among the several talismans in Tao of Talisman, he paid special attention to the altering heaven and earth talisman and the breath-gathering talisman, so that he could draw them at any time if he had the materials in the future. It just so happened that when Tang Liwen left, she left him a lot of materials for drawing talismans. After returning to the valley, the first thing Zuyun did was draw a talisman to change the world. However, this cannot be changed too much. He just slightly changed the combination of facial features. For example, the bridge of the nose is raised a little higher, the eyeliner is lengthened, and so on. Because of this, when the disciple first met Zuyun, he felt something was different. When he met Zuyun again in the Fire Dragon sect, he subconsciously kept Zuyun's appearance firmly in his mind and constantly compared it with his memory. Therefore, when Zuyun changed slightly, he keenly discovered something was wrong. I didn't dare to lie in front of Zhong Jingguo, so naturally I just said there was a difference. As for Zhong Jingguo, he only came here to establish his authority. If it is feasible, it can even be used as an excuse to threaten the Tianzhen sect. But even if it wasn't, Zhong Jingguo didn't care. Because of this, his image of being able to distinguish right from wrong will spread among his disciples, which will help him unify the entire Fire Dragon sect. In particular, after all the disciples in the Internal Affairs Hall die, if you want to hire people, you can only promote them from the Foreign Affairs Hall. As for the Foreign Affairs Hall, to put it bluntly, they are just higher-level handymen. To Zhong Jingguo, these people are more like a blank slate. Zuyun breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that he had escaped a disaster. It seems that the Fire Dragon sect is not safe either. If everything is fine in the future, stay away from the section. As for refining elixirs and refining weapons, let's take a look at what Yan Laoxi left for me, but, in this case, there is no way to give the Fire Spirit Pearl now that you have replenished your spiritual power. Do you want to go to the Fire Dragon's habitat? Zuyun felt a little itchy when he thought of the Fire Dragon. After all, if it is possible to conquer a spiritual beast that is equivalent to the realm of the Demon King, what else does he have to worry about in the Fire Dragon sect? Moreover, the problem of charging the Spirit Fire Pearl can also be solved. Zuyun couldn't help but think of the whip, and he didn't know if the whip would have any effect on him. Forcibly restraining this thought, Zuyun decided to solve the formation on his lower abdomen first. After running the star-moving formation to prevent people from entering the valley at will, Zuyun entered the wooden house. Lifting up his clothes, he used the void-breaking spiritual eye technique. As a cool feeling passed through his eyes, it turned out that the formation patterns drawn with black pen and ink were trembling on his belly. Moreover, it is very regular. This formation. Zuyun was horrified. The formation pattern could indeed move, but he had never seen it before as if it was directly connected to his body. For a moment, Zuyun thought it was the mutated blood in his lower abdomen, and even the blood was smelly and black. However, no matter how powerful this formation is, Tianzhenzi will still use it on me. At least before the secret realm of the heavenly book, I will still be safe. I have time, and I can't lose my footing. Zuyun took a deep breath and did not dare to enter the immortal mansion to break it. He was afraid that if he went in for a long time, Tianzhenzi would sense that the formation was not there and he would have doubts. If he wanted to fight back with all his face, he would definitely die. Zuyun originally thought that he had obtained the true inheritance of Sun Suanhua and Tang Liwen, and Tianzhenzi's formation method was nothing more than this. But he didn't expect that when he used the void-breaking spiritual eye technique to look at it, he would feel the true ability of a powerful person in the Peepa realm. It seems that I can only study the formation Dao recently. Not only do I need to digest and absorb what Aunt Tang taught me, but I also need to take a good look at the explanation of the formation Dao. He sighed slightly, feeling insignificant once again. At the same time, I reflect on myself and find that I have become a little swollen recently. The Peeper realm can also be regarded as the mortal realm. It is far more difficult for him to deal with a nascent soul ancestor than it is to deal with the core formation stage during the foundation establishment stage. If he wants to go to the spirit world again and again, I'm afraid. You must calm down and practice well. Zhu Yunqiang took a breath, put down his clothes, and took out the solution to the formation. Then he sat cross-legged on the bed and began to absorb the formation taught by Tang Liwen bit by bit. As for what happened to the outside world, he no longer cared. He believed that although his danger in the Fire Dragon sect was still there, it had become much smaller. Now, all you have to do is wait for the secret realm of the Book of Heaven to open. Dan Pavilion, Lian Nishang also just came back. Perhaps because of Zhu Yun's relationship, she was much more pleased with Huo Maoang. Fairy Lian, why are you looking for me? Seeing Lian Nishang coming to find him, Huo Maoang felt nervous. To him, Lian Nishang is like a heavenly being. Nothing, I just want to know how much you know about Fire Dragon transformation? If I remember correctly, it seems that it was your suggestion that Master also take Fire Dragon transformation into the Dan Pavilion, right? Huo Maoang's heart skipped a beat. Lian Nishang asked him carefully about Huo Qinjue. Could it be that the two of them were at odds? Logically speaking, this kind of problem is not a secret. With her status, she could ask in person, and even more so, she could ask Elder Dan, but she chose to ask herself. It must be, maybe I won't be dragged down. Huo Maoang immediately told everything about the earliest transaction between himself and Huo Qinjue. You said, the reason why you originally traded with him was because you helped Master obtain the Ice Spirit Grass. Lian Nishang knew about this, but she didn't expect that Huo Maoang almost died. In the end, by some mistake, Zhu Yun saved his life. Yes, Fairy Lian, I don't dare to hide anything. Huo Maoang didn't add any fuel to the fire. He was afraid that if Lian Nishang went to Zhu Yun for verification, if it was leaked and she would be angry, he would not know how he would die. He didn't know much, but it was enough that Lian Nishang was a direct disciple of Elder Dan, a direct descendant of the Fire Dragon sect, and a prodigy. Lian Nishang secretly thought, Master wanted the Ice Spirit Grass to refine a special realm-breaking elixir for me, in order to use the Ice Spirit power of the Ice Spirit Grass to temporarily suppress the huge fire power. However, I didn't know how to use it at that time. Now that I know what kind of main medicine is needed to refine, I have to use humans as a furnace and as a medicine guide. At this time, Master is looking for suitable monsters to replace him. Ice Spirit Grass is still needed, so why don't I help him first? Get it so that Master can refine the elixir quickly. Thinking of this, Lian Nishang asked Huo Maoang the details of when he took the Ice Spirit Grass, and how Zhu Yun saved him. After feeling that everything was safe, Lian Nishang decided to go to the sect treasure house to try it himself. After Lian Nishang left, Huo Maoang breathed a sigh of relief, patted his chest, felt a few handfuls of cold sweat, and said secretly, Senior Brother Qinjue, you are really playing a big game, but please don't drag me in, I just want to practice quietly. At this time, an old man suddenly appeared at the mountain gate. In fact, there are 2 disciples left in the Internal Affairs Hall, who are guarding the mountain gate. This is an important place, and people from the Foreign Affairs Hall are not qualified. Who is here, and why are you here at the Fire Dragon sect? A disciple stopped the old man. 2. The old man said with a smile, I am a casual cultivator, and I have some skills in alchemy and weapon making, so I want to join the Fire Dragon sect. After saying that, he also took out 2 spiritual stones and handed them over respectfully. Hey, the old guy is pretty good at it, isn't he? I have been walking in the Peeper realm for many years. Although my level is very small, I still know how to deal with the world. You two look very impressive at first glance. They must be disciples of the Internal Affairs Hall of the Fire Dragon sect. I just want to join the Fire Dragon sect, and I also ask you to do it for your convenience. For the sake of the Spirit Stone, I will inform you. The disciple who spoke put the Spirit Stone into his arms, and before turning around and leaving, he said again, remember, unless you enter the Internal Affairs Hall, even if you are in the pill formation stage, you will have to call us senior brother when you meet us. Yes, yes, I have met these two senior brothers. I am so polite. The old man was so humble that he held his hands and bowed again. Yes, those who are on the path can live a good life in the Fire Dragon sect. You have the cultivation level and know how to make elixirs and make weapons. It is not difficult to enter the Foreign Affairs Hall. The disciple nodded, his face full of appreciation, and went to the sect to report. The sect has undergone tremendous changes, and just now some deacons have issued an announcement, saying that they will recruit more disciples next. If someone worships the mountain gate, they can be admitted even during the chi refining period. This is enough to show the extent to which they are short of people. At this time, they were also selecting the taller ones from among the short ones. Many disciples from the Foreign Affairs Hall were promoted to the Internal Affairs Hall, and there were also ordinary handyman disciples who were promoted to the Foreign Affairs Hall. Soon, this disciple came with a deacon. When he saw that it was an old man, he was still a little dissatisfied. However, after carefully feeling the old man's state, which turned out to be the peak of the late stage of pill formation, he immediately said seriously, "Fellow Taoist is quite strong. If it were in the past, it would not be difficult to enter the Internal Affairs Hall. But at this time, the sect is in a special situation, so fellow Taoist will enter first. Foreign Affairs Hall. It's easy to talk, it's easy to talk, it all depends on this, senior brother's arrangement." The old man put away his sword and said with a smile, not angry at all, "You're welcome, you're welcome. In terms of realm, you are still higher than me. If you enter the Internal Affairs Hall in the future, I'm afraid I will call you senior brother. Fellow Taoist, please follow me to the Foreign Affairs Hall." This deacon was the disciple who identified Zuyun at that time. Although he was not punished by Zhong Jingguo and others, all the nascent souls knew that he would never succeed again. It was also a transfer order, from working in the sect master's palace to guarding the mountain gate. Seeing that the old man was quite powerful and could break through to the realm of nascent soul at any time, he decided to make a good relationship first. After all, once you become a nascent soul, you can become a true elder. Now that he is not welcome, he also needs to find a new backer to make plans for the future. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 522. What do you call fellow Taoist? The disciple asked with a smile on his face. He didn't look like a deacon at all. Instead, it feels more like an old friend for many years. Wu Chidao also smiled and said, "Senior brother, you're welcome, just ask me to strike with my sword." This name is a bit strange. No wonder, when the old man was still immortal, he fantasized about traveling to the end of the world with a sword. Later. What happened next? The deacon deliberately tried to please and pretended to be curious. Later, I changed my original plan because I had no money. Wu Chidao shook his head. How many people had he seen in his 9th revolution? Not to mention, he was the leader of the puppet-controlling demon sect, so he had already seen what the deacon was thinking. It's not an exaggeration to say that you are flattering. However, he didn't know what the purpose was, so he deliberately made it appear that he was from a humble background, and he was also thinking of making excuses. After all, he originally discovered that all the nascent soul stages of the Fire Dragon sect were dispatched, so he thought that there was ice spirit grass here, which would also be useful to him, so his trip would not be in vain. The deacon suppressed his blush at these words. He wanted to laugh, but he was afraid that if he was rude, he would be resented. "Brother, what's wrong?" Wuchideo couldn't tell, but he pretended not to know. It's okay, it's okay. I didn't expect that fellow Taoist mentioned the past and didn't react. The deacon laughed twice and spoke vaguely. But he couldn't say junior brother. Wuchideo touched his beard and said with a smile, "Brother, don't be offended. Later, I thought, although I have no money, I have a sword and a dog, so I can naturally make my way into the world. It's a pity that Lefu died later." In terms of acting ability, Wuchideo was naturally stronger. He felt regretful for a while, which made the deacon become interested again. "Who is Lefu?" The deacon thought that after knowing who Lefu was, he could express his condolences to win Wuchideo's favor. Unexpectedly, Wuchideo's words almost made him breathless. "Lefu is the dog that followed me into the world." Puff. Wuchideo said quietly, "One dog and one sword left me with only one sword to accompany the old man in the world, so the old man simply called me One Sword. It turns out to be like this." The deacon finally regained his breath, responded, and changed the subject again, "So Daoist fellow Yi Jian is a sword cultivator?" "Yes, and no. The sword is just a magic weapon for old man, and old man still likes to refine alchemy and make weapons. In fact, this sword was also made by old man himself. Come to the Fire Dragon sect, but old man still has selfish motives." As he spoke, he deliberately approached the deacon's ear and said, "I want to use the earth fire veins here to temper the sword again when I have free time." The deacon originally thought it was selfishness, but when he heard this, he couldn't help but smile and said, "Fellow Taoist, you can make elixirs and make weapons, this is a trivial matter. When the time comes, you can enter the Internal Affairs Hall, there will be a chance. And this it's not a big deal, as long as you complete the task, you can do anything." "Real?" Wuchideo deliberately pretended to be surprised. "That's natural." The deacon patted his chest and assured, "We, the Fire Dragon sect, value everyone's ability. If the ability is sufficient, then they will naturally rise to the top. I also heard that 2 disciples from the Foreign Affairs Hall were directly selected by Elder Dan to join the elixir." "It's over." "Is this happening?" Wuchideo knew Dan Lao. When it comes to alchemy, Dan Lao is also quite famous. However, Mr. Dan has a weird temper and has never dealt with him in the Beast Control Pavilion. To be able to penetrate his Dharma eyes, those 2 Foreign Affairs Hall disciples must have the talent for alchemy. Wuchideo came here for the ice spirit grass, and with a thought in his mind, he deliberately inquired, "Those 2 senior brothers, I'm afraid they are also gifted in alchemy, right?" Fortunately, Mr. Dan has a keen eye for pearls, otherwise it would really be possible for foreign affairs to happen. The hall is filled with dust. However, this also shows that the Fire Dragon sect will not let anyone go. As long as I work hard, I will surely reach a higher level one day. Fellow Taoist, this is wrong." The deacon smiled and said, "Those 2 people were just lucky. I heard." He thought that Wuchideo had even told him his selfish intentions, which showed that he trusted him very much. If he didn't reveal some information, how could he show his sincerity? He came over and whispered, "As far as I know, Mr. Dan wanted those 2 people to get the ice spirit grass. At first, a disciple named Huo Maoang was almost killed in order to help Mr. Dan get the ice spirit grass. He was frozen to death. Later, for some reason, Dan Lao took him and his companions into the Dan Pavilion for the second time." Having said this, he stood up straight again and said with a smile, "Fellow Taoist, there is no need to go to the Dan Pavilion. Elder Dan has very strict rules, and there is also a grumpy true disciple Lian Nishang. The most important thing is, the Dan Pavilion only refines elixirs, but doesn't provide tools, so it won't be of much help to fellow Taoists. Wu Chidao sneered in his heart, I am making a weapon? I am here just for the ice spirit grass. However, what he just said was in front. How to come back to it? He hadn't thought about it yet, so he said, swords are all external things. Anyway, whether it is refining elixirs or making weapons, as long as you can rise to a high position, it will be the same. Fellow Taoists should be open-minded. We, the cultivators, should be as open-minded as fellow Taoist. The deacon smiled and extended his thumb, thinking that he was flattering her in an invisible way. But as soon as he finished speaking, a red shadow floated past the two of them like a whirlwind. Refining fairy. The deacon quickly stood up straight and said hello. Deacon Yan. Lian Nishang glanced at him and then set her eyes on Wu Chidao. Who is this fellow Daoist? Seeing that he was carrying a long sword, of average grade, and looked to be at a high level, but not young, she couldn't help but ask one more question. Ah, Fairy Lian, this is the fellow Daoist Eujian who wants to join our mountain sect. The sect master said today that the sect is short of people. If there are cultivators who want to join the sect, they can be accepted. I am arranging for him to go to the Foreign Affairs Hall. The Foreign Affairs Hall does not accept sword cultivators. At least they must have the basic skills of alchemy or weapon making. Otherwise, they can only be menial servants if they come. Lian Nishang understands the rules of the sect. Generally speaking, most disciples in the Foreign Affairs Hall are promoted from menial servants. Although there are no requirements, in fact, the realm and the skills of alchemy and weapon making still need to reach a certain level. After all, it is a sect that survives in the Peeper realm with these two things. So this is Fairy Lian. I am honored to meet you. Wu Chidao also bowed politely, and then said, I can only be considered half a sword cultivator. The other half is a pill master and a weapon master. It's just that my skills are crude, so I want to come to the Fire Dragon sect to study further. Of course, I will truly regard myself as a member of the Fire Dragon sect. I don't care about this matter, Lian Nishang waved her hand and said casually, Deacon Yan, since you are here to do things under the order of the sect master, just do it. I have something to do, so I'll leave first. Fairy Lian, take care. After the deacon sent Lian Nishang away, he kept stroking his chin. Brother, why is this Fairy Lian weird? Wu Chidao asked. It's weird, but why is she going to the treasure house for no reason? Treasure house? Wu Chidao's eyes lit up. Yes, Fairy Lian is always practicing. Even if she needs any resources, the disciples of Dan Pavilion will help her get them. She never goes there. Moreover, Fairy Lian only has two places to practice. One is Dan Pavilion, and the other is Elder Tang's Valley. Maybe she wants to make pills, and ordinary disciples can't get them, so she goes to get them herself. Wu Chidao reminded him, pretending to be ignorant. In fact, he had a vague guess, but he was not sure. It is true that his strength will change dramatically after his 9 revolutions magic skills are completed. But in fact, he is only a little stronger than the ordinary peak of the late Jindan period. Impossible, Elder Dan is very good to her. Wait, Elder Dan. The deacon suddenly woke up and said, Elder Dan went out. I heard from the disciples guarding the mountain gate that he went to the 10,000 mountains to register. Why did he go so far? Wu Chidao was overjoyed. Elder Dan went so far. Then could I use the heaven and earth change talisman to become Elder Dan's appearance, and then find a way to get the ice spirit grass? He had never met Dan Lao, but he knew what Dan Lao looked like. It was not difficult to become like him. I don't know, anyway, the disciples of the mountain gate recorded it this way. The deacon shook his head and said, Will Fairy Lian go to get the ice spirit grass? Wu Chidao's eyes flashed with a gleam of light, and he said, It shouldn't be, the ice spirit power of the ice spirit grass cannot be suppressed by ordinary fire spirit power. That's true, the deacon nodded, not knowing what Wu Chideo was thinking, and smiled. Let's go, fellow deist Eugean, I'll take you to settle down first. Okay. Thank you, senior brother. Don't call me senior brother, I was given the surname Yan by the sect, and my name is Yan Xingxi. Thank you, senior brother Xingxi. Fellow deist Eugean, you called me senior brother again. After sending Yan Xingxi away in the Foreign Affairs Hall, Wu Chideo's eyes flickered. It will take at least some time to pretend to be Dan Lao. In addition to making it more reasonable for Dan Lao to come back, he also needs to know his current situation, otherwise he will definitely be recognized by a direct disciple like Lian Nishang. He touched his chin and soon came up with a plan. He can pretend to be another disciple first. Didn't I come here for the ice spirit grass? If I transform into the disciple who took the ice spirit grass, maybe I will have a chance. Thinking of this, he quickly stood up and walked towards the direction of Dan Pavilion. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 523. When Huo Maoang was about to swallow a fire dragon pill and continue practicing, he happened to see an old man carrying a sword walking towards here. He looked very strange. The key point is that Wu Chideo looked around as he walked and found that he was not from Dan Pavilion at all. Who are you and why do you come to my Dan Pavilion? Huo Maoang left the room and immediately stopped Wu Chi. Of course Wu Chideo didn't know Huo Maoang. When he saw him coming forward, he smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist, you are polite. I am a disciple who was just admitted into the sect today. I have nothing to do, so I came here to take a look. New here." Huo Maoang looked up and down and felt that the aura on his body was stronger than his own, so he simply said, "The new guy should be in the Foreign Affairs Hall, right? This is the Dan Pavilion, no one is allowed to enter." Wu Chideo said quickly, "This senior brother, I like to make alchemy. When I was a casual practitioner, I had long heard that the disciples of the Fire Dragon Sect's Alchemy Pavilion were all talented people, so I wanted to come and pay homage to him. This senior brother is like this young, he must be very famous in the Alchemy Pavilion. I don't know who my senior brother is, so that I can use him as a benchmark for practicing alchemy." Wu Chideo kept flattering his senior brother, which made Huo Maoang feel elated. It would be fine if it were taken by an ordinary person, but the person in front of me is of a high level, old, and so humble. He has long forgotten about it. He just laughed and said, "That's ridiculous, that's ridiculous. My name is Huo Maoang. I don't know who this person is. What do you call your junior brother?" When the junior brother shouted out, Huo Maoang also became a little carried away. Little did he know that Wu Chideo was overjoyed when he heard the words Huo Maoang. He had already inquired with Yan Xingxi about the name of the disciple who took the ice spirit grass to become immortal. I didn't expect that I would be so lucky to meet him as soon as I came here. Immediately, Wu Chideo's eyes became even more joyful. It took no effort to shout. It turns out that senior brother is Huo Maoang. Wu Chideo's eyes changed, showing longing, and said, "I heard from the disciples in the Foreign Affairs Hall that in the entire Fire Dragon sect, only one person dared to touch the ice spirit grass, and he survived. It turns out that such a genius is right in front of this old man. Disrespect. Sorry." This compliment made Huo Maoang feel a little embarrassed. He touched the back of his head and said, "Junior brother, I'm not as mysterious as you said. I'm just lucky enough not to die." Elder Dan also thought of this, so he let me in the Dan Pavilion. I have to say that my injuries have not fully recovered yet. Oh. Wu Chideo raised his brows and said, "Senior brother, do you still have residual ice spiritual power in your body?" "Of course, the cold poison of this ice spirit power still exists in the Danshan. I am relying on the fire dragon pill given by Elder Dan to get rid of it. I was just about to take another pill when I saw my junior brother coming. Fire dragon pill, this is the signature pill of the fire dragon sect. When I was practicing, one pill cost 10,000 spiritual stones. Elder pill actually took the fire dragon pill to exorcise the poison for senior brother. Senior brother, don't be too modest, it must be very powerful. Huo Maoyang's face turned red and he couldn't continue to speak. Wuchideo Shunpo said, Senior brother, I know a little bit about the art of medicine and stone. I wonder if I can let me have a look and see if I can find a good way to help my senior brother get rid of the ice spirit poison faster. That's good. Wuchideo was overjoyed, and quickly invited Wuchideo into his wooden house, closed the doors and windows, and then said, Junior brother, I don't know something. In the past few days, I have taken 3 fire dragon pills every day. It is effective, but I always feel something is wrong. Could you help me take a look? Easy to say, easy to say. Wuchideo touched his beard and said, Senior brother, first swallow a fire dragon pill, then stretch out your hand and take a pulse. Huo Maoyang did as he was told, poured out a fire elixir and swallowed it. Wuchideo clasped 3 fingers on Huo Maoyang's hand veins. At this time, if he wanted Huo Maoyang to die, he could only do so in one thought. It's a pity, after all, he is still in the realm of forming pills. If Huo Maoyang makes any noise, it may be bad. However, he has many methods for such trivial matters. Slowly pouring his spiritual power through his meridians, he soon found the crux of the problem. This fire dragon pill is different from ordinary fire dragon pill. In other words, he felt that it had the same effect as the soul control pill. They are all mixed with a main medicine that warms and nourishes the soul. After refining, this medicinal power will also flow into the Zi mansion. However, he could not yet see what the medicinal power was for. After all, when it comes to alchemy attainments, Wuchideo is several levels behind alchemy master. Unless he swallows a few pills to feel them. But what we can know is that Elder Dan's fire dragon pill has an ulterior motive. If it was for the ice spirit grass, Wuchideo wouldn't mind taking a few. When he succeeds in the 9th revolution, not only will his body be reshaped, but his soul will become completely different. This kind of medicine, even if it is replaced by poison, will not cause any harm to him. Thinking of this, Wuchideo started to think twice. Thinking back to just now, Yan Xingshi said that Lian Nishang would most likely go to get the ice spirit grass, which was just right to trick him. Wuchideo withdrew his spiritual power and touched his chin pretending to be profound. Huo Maoyang became nervous and said, Junior brother, how are you? It's a bit of a bad situation, but it's not incurable. Huo Maoyang was suddenly shocked. Ah! Doesn't this fire dragon pill also work? Wuchideo's eyes were bright and he said, Brother Huo, please forgive me for speaking frankly. You know that the fire dragon pill has little effect on you. This bottle of fire dragon pill is probably far from enough, right? Indeed, this bottle of fire dragon pills only contains more than 20 pills in total. I did a rough calculation and found that based on the current recovery status, at least 100 pills are needed. Yes. Wuchideo sighed and said, that's 1 million spiritual stones. Huo Maoyang was shocked, this was a huge sum of money. How could a person like Mr. Dan pay such a high price for an ordinary Dan Pavilion disciple like him? While he was still thinking, Wuchideo immediately said, Senior brother, don't panic, I have a way to solve it once and for all. It's just. Hearing that it could be completely solved, Huo Maoyang quickly asked, what's the solution? Fight fire with fire. Fight fire with fire. Huo Maoyang murmured, and then said in surprise, Junior brother, do you mean using ice spirit grass? That's right. If you can get close to the ice spirit grass, I can't help but think of a way to let the ice spirit cold poison in you return to the ice spirit grass. This is so great. Huo Maoang looked happy and said, Fairy Lian just happened to go to get the ice spirit grass. If she gets it back, I beg her to borrow the ice spirit grass. I think she will definitely agree. Through several conversations with Lian Nishang, Huo Maoang knew that Lian Nishang was actually a good talker. I don't want to come here for ice spirit grass, I just need to make it clear that using ice spirit grass to absorb cold poison is not difficult. Wu Chidao, on the other hand, felt nervous. He didn't expect that Lian Nishang was really going to get the ice spirit grass. But, can she get the ice spirit grass? If others don't know, doesn't he know how difficult it is to get the ice spirit grass? Huo Maoang was happy, but when he saw Wu Chidao's frown, he immediately asked, Junior brother, what's wrong? Senior brother, forgive me for speaking frankly. I have also met Fairy Lian on the road. With her strength, it may not be so easy to get the ice spirit grass. Just imagine, Senior Dan is in such a state that you are asked to get it. Ice spirit grass, like the refining fairy, can you get it? Yeah, why didn't I think of that? Huo Maoang immediately stood up and exclaimed, Junior brother, do you have a way to obtain the ice spirit grass? Wu Chidao touched his beard and said meaningfully, if the refining fairy can't get it, how can I get it? Besides, I don't know where the ice spirit grass is. Just when Huo Maoang thought that the matter could not be solved, Wu Chidao laughed and stood up, Senior brother, don't panic. It doesn't matter whether you can get the ice spirit grass or not. You have the cold poison in your body, just get close. Ice spirit grass is enough, why do we have to take ice spirit grass? You mean? Huo Maoang's eyes lit up and he heard Wu Chidao say, that's right, let's go to the place where the ice spirit grass is. I will have a way to let the ice spirit grass absorb the cold poison from your body. I know where the ice spirit grass is, it's in the treasure house. Huo Maoang was ecstatic and said quickly, Junior brother, Fairy Lian happens to be there, why don't we go find him first? Easy to say, easy to say. It's just. Wu Chidao looked troubled. It doesn't matter, Huo Maoang patted his chest and said, Senior brother, I am a disciple of Dan Pavilion after all. As long as those elders don't interfere, it won't be a big deal if I take someone to meet Fairy Lian outside the treasure house. What's more, the ice spirit grass has already been. It is the property of Elixir. Their treasury controls heaven and earth, so how can they manage Elixir's things? That's great, let's go there quickly. Wu Chidao was immediately impatient. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzhuan Xianxia. Chapter 524. Okay, let's go. How could Huo Maoang still hesitate? He had been to the treasure house and naturally knew the specific location. It's about your own safety, and there's nothing to lose, so why not do it? The two of them walked quickly towards the treasure house, one behind the other. Not long after, they arrived in front of the treasure house. There are two ordinary disciples guarding the entrance to the treasure house. The important place of the sect, what are you doing here? Huo Maoang took out the identity plate that Elder Dan had given him later, flashed it forward, and said, I'm here to see Fairy Lian. I have something to discuss. It turns out to be Dange's senior brother. One of the disciples took it and took a look at it. He saw that he was a Dan Pavilion disciple again. He was looking for Lian Nishang, who had just entered. He let him go directly. When Lian Nishang came, he bluntly said that he wanted to get the ice spirit grass for Elixir. The Shaoku disciples naturally knew that the ice spirit grass belonged to Elixir, and would not stop it, so they put Lian Nishang in. At this time, when I saw Dange coming here again, I thought there was something going on with her, so there was no point in trying to stop her. Wu Chidao was excited, but his expression remained unchanged. Before coming to the Fire Dragon sect, he made a lot of preparations, but he never thought it would be so simple. If the treasure house is suitable for action later, he will not hesitate at all. As Huo Maoang walked all the way inside along the passage, Wu Chidao kept his eyes fixed. Compared to Huo Maoang, he was even calmer. The treasure house is actually an artificially dug cave. Wu Chidao felt that the cave seemed to be a little downward, but after walking for a long time, it turned upward. Feel it carefully and feel relieved again. Ice spirit grass, a kind of spiritual grass from extremely cold places, has extremely high requirements for storage environment. The fire dragon sect is also a place of extreme inflammation, close to the earth's veins. To come to this passage is to stay as far away from the earth veins as possible. Moreover, there must be a spirit gathering array. On the way here, he learned that the ice spirit grass was dug up by the roots and planted on a piece of 10,000-year-old ice, so that it could be maintained for such a long time. This elixir master doesn't know what kind of elixir he needs to refine with the ice spirit grass. Indeed, his level of elixir refining is second to none in the Peepa realm. Wu Chidao thought to himself. He needs the ice spirit grass to use the power of extreme ice in it to promote his last turn, so that he can break through the 9th turn and successfully conceive a baby. By then, his strength will completely crush the entire Peepa realm. However, the things that are missing are not enough, and ice spirit grass is just one of them. The road was winding, and soon, through his own eyes, Wu Chidao saw a faint hint of light blue in the air. In the dark, it is not conspicuous. But who is Wu Chidao? With the realm of pill formation, Zuyun's void-breaking spirit eye technique can't even dare to look directly at it. Junior brother Yijian, we're almost there, it's getting a little cold all around. Huo Maoang reminded. I'm telling you, it turns out we're almost there. Wu Chidao said with a smile, in fact, he already knew it. After walking for a while, they finally reached their destination. What is visible to the eye is the bottom of a cave filled with light blue ice spiritual power. In the middle of this space, a square piece of ice exudes cold air, like smoke from a kitchen stove. And above the ice, there is a spiritual grass covered with ice. Hey, where's the refining fairy? Huo Maoang looked around, but did not see Lian Nishang's figure. Lian Nishang usually likes to wear bright red clothes, and it stands to reason that he would be particularly conspicuous in such an environment, but he has searched the entire cave but can't find it. There. Wu Chidao's pupils shrank and pointed behind the ice. Only then did Huo Maoang realize that Lian Nishang had been frozen into an ice sculpture lying on the ground. He saw her whole body covered in ice blue color, shrouded in the blue light in the cave. If Wu Chidao hadn't reminded her, he really wouldn't have been able to notice her standing here. Fairy Lian, what's wrong with you? Huo Maoang was startled and hurriedly rushed forward. Taking 3 steps and 2 steps at a time, he was close to Lian Nishang. He squatted down, subconsciously condensing flames, trying to help melt the ice on her body to save her. As someone who has endured the pain of ice spiritual power, he knows that under such circumstances, only the fire power of spiritual fire will be effective. He naturally thought that if he fed Lian Nishang a fire dragon pill later, he would be able to wake her up, and then retreated from here. But he didn't expect that this would play into Wu Chidao's plan. For him, how could such a good opportunity be wasted? You're here now, so stay here. Wu Chidao's eyes narrowed, he stretched out his hand and shot it out from the air. Hula! The huge spiritual power formed a strong wind, which directly extinguished the flame formed by Huo Maoang's spiritual fire. But at this time, he was so close to the ice spirit grass. Without the help of the spiritual fire, a chill suddenly forced his body into his body. However, Huo Maoang's body was also covered with thick frost as he breathed. Wu Chidao's eyes were even more joyful, and he silently recited a few magic formulas in his mouth. After a flash of brilliance flashed all over his body, he stretched out again in the air. The ice spirit grass in the tens of thousands of years of ice quickly flew towards Wuchideo. He stretched out his hand and touched it between his fingers, and the sumuru ring that he had hidden appeared immediately. He took out a strange-shaped ice blue jade box. The jade box opened automatically. Wuchideo did not see any unnecessary movement. The ice spirit grass immediately flew into it and the jade box was closed. Enjoy the ice power of this 10,000-year-old ice. I hope you like it. He laughed ferociously a few times, then quickly walked away. It's not that Wuchideo doesn't want to kill people and silence them, but that Lian Nishang has been frozen into an ice sculpture, and Huo Maoang is not far away from this situation. He is obviously destined to die. In addition, if you take action, it is very likely that there will be movement outside the cave, which will arouse the suspicion of the disciples guarding the library. Anyway, the two of them were already destined to die in his eyes, and it would be thankless to take action. Wuchideo had already obtained the ice spirit grass, and his identity was not true. It's no longer necessary. Putting away the jade box, Wuchideo took out another talisman to change the world, put his hand on his forehead, and transformed into Huo Maoang. He smiled and ran towards the outside of the treasure house proudly. As long as you leave the fire dragon sect, the sky will be open for birds to fly and the sea will be open for fish to leap. By then, who would have known that Wuchideo had obtained the ice spirit grass? On the other side, Tang Liwen's feet were extremely fast. Although he cannot see with his eyes, he can use his spiritual consciousness and induction to escape all the way towards the Shiwen mountain. There is no need to worry about hitting anything while in mid-air. In this way, a few days passed, and she had already reached the edge of the 100,000 mountains. Smelling the looming evil spirit in the air, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. Along the way, no one was chasing her. She stood still for a long time, quietly feeling that the spiritual power of heaven and earth here gradually weakened, and then slowly fell downwards. With her feet on solid ground, she took out the beast control bag and released Xiuqi. Xiaoqi, now that we have arrived at Shiwanda Mountain, you have to help me lead the way. Squeak. Xiuqi called out twice and ran forward. Tang Liwen locked her spiritual consciousness on Xiuqi's body, and at the same time slightly expanded the range to distinguish the terrain, and then followed closely behind. Not long after running, Xiuqi suddenly shouted, changed direction, and ran toward the foot of the mountain on the other side. Xiaoqi, where are you running? Tang Liwen was startled and thought Xiuqi was in danger, so she shouted quickly. But Xiuqi ran like crazy. But unfortunately, her legs were short and no matter how fast she was still hugged by Tang Liwen within a short distance. What are you doing? Didn't Zuyun ask me to take you back to Demon Fox Mountain? Tang Liwen said slightly reproachfully. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Xiuqi screamed and stretched out his two front legs to make gestures. But Tang Liwen didn't understand animal language or what Xiuqi meant, so she couldn't help but feel a little anxious. She didn't know the route from here to Chuzhu. It is said that there is a demon king in the mountains, and if she encounters one, she will be powerless to deal with it. Xiaoqi, don't worry, you can understand human speech, right? After all, Tang Liwen was also in the nascent soul realm. She had met many people. After a moment of concentration, she found a way to ask questions with yes or no. Xiuqi responded by nodding and shaking his head. After a while, Tang Liwen understood Xiuqi's intention. Mean. She is looking for someone. That person is very important to you, right? Tang Liwen asked in a deep voice. Xiuqi nodded. Then after you find someone, will you still take me over the 100,000 mountains? Xiuqi nodded again. Tang Liwen took a deep breath and said, Xiaoqi, you know, there may be people from the Fire Dragon sect chasing you at any time. I have something to say first. If there is someone, I can only take you to escape first. Otherwise, there is nothing I can do. If it weren't for Zhu Yun's face, and if Qiu Qi could help her return to Chezhu, Tang Luan's temper would definitely not allow Qiu Qi to act like this. Therefore, Tang Luan also put her words first. Qiu Qi could not care about so much at this time and nodded repeatedly. Tang Luan then said, "You point me in the direction and I will take you to run." I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 525. Because she was afraid of meeting the Demon King, Tang Luan did not dare to release her spiritual consciousness too much. But fortunately, Qiu Qi recognized it through his sense of smell, so he could accurately guide the way. After only running for a cup of tea, they stopped at the foot of a mountain. Only then did Tang Luan discover that there was a very hidden cave here. It is said to be a cave, but it is said that the cracks in the mountain are quite similar and can only accommodate one person. If you were a little bigger, it would be impossible to squeeze in. Xiaoqi, is the person you are looking for inside? Tang Luan whispered and then carefully released her spiritual consciousness. But before the person could react, a golden sword light quickly flashed in his spiritual consciousness. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Tang Luan was shocked at first, but then she felt the sword light, but it was in the realm of pill formation. Even if he stood still, it would be impossible to hurt her at all. On the contrary, Qiu Qi's cry made Tang Luan say seriously, "Is he your friend?" Although Tang Luan didn't ask how Zhu Yun and Qiu Qi met, she could guess that they knew each other when they were in Chezhu. It's not surprising that Qiu Qi met during the Dan formation period. Listening to her nervous screams, I could somewhat understand the meaning. Zioki. After the sword light hit Tang Luan, it dissipated instantly, and at the same time, a pleasant female voice came from the crack. "Do you know Qiu Qi?" Tang Luan asked immediately, while spreading her spiritual consciousness in again. This time, the opponent stopped attacking, and his spiritual consciousness enveloped her smoothly. Nascent soul stage. "I've met my senior." Just hearing a cry of surprise, the people inside knelt down. "Junior Sun Qiniang, I have met my senior." "Dare I ask, senior, is the Qiu Qi you are talking about the demon fox Qiu Qi?" As soon as the words fell, Qiu Qi broke away from Tang Luan's hands and slipped into the crack nimbly. "Xiao Qi, it's really you. You." Sun Qiniang subconsciously picked up Qiu Qi, but she suddenly realized that there was another nascent soul ancestor outside. Her heart instantly became tense, and she quickly squeezed out of the crack and knelt down in front of her again. "I've seen senior. I dare to ask senior, but have you seen monk Li Mo with Xiao Qi?" Upon hearing the word Li Mo, Qiu Qi jumped out of the crack, stood up, and danced wildly in front of Sun Qiniang. Sun Qiniang couldn't understand it, and Tang Luan certainly couldn't understand it either. Instead, Tang Luan became confused and said, "I don't know Li Mo, but Zhu Yun, do you know him?" "Wish Yun." Hearing these two words that she had been thinking about day and night, a chill flashed through Sun Qiniang's heart, but she suddenly became enthusiastic. She was so enthusiastic that she almost forgot that Tang Luan in front of her was a nascent soul stage. "Senior, do you know where Zhu Yun is?" In excitement, his figure was as fast as the wind, his long hair fluttered, revealing a terrifying yin-yang face that had been burned by fire. Squeak. Qiu Qi was suddenly startled and fell several times. Although she is a monster, she also understands human aesthetics. Even compared to her clansmen who had transformed into human form, Sun Qiniang still had no concessions. But at this time, how could it become such a ghost? If she hadn't remembered the body fragrance on her body, I'm afraid at this moment, she would have felt that she wasn't Sun Qiniang at all. Seeing Qiu Qi's reaction, Sun Qiniang looked bitter and touched her own face, saying, "Xiao Qi, do you think I'm ugly too?" However, Tang Luan could not see Sun Qiniang's face and had no feelings. Instead, she said, "What is your relationship with Zuyun?" Senior, Sun Qiniang came to her senses. She didn't know that Tang Liwen couldn't see, but she bowed her head humbly and said, "The little girl is a good friend of Zhu Yunzi. She is from Yunzhou." Because she was worried that something might happen to him, she stayed away all the way. Yunzhou came to Chuzhu. It's just a long story, and the little girl is afraid of wasting the senior's time. I didn't expect that this boy Zuyun would have a woman who is so devoted to him. Tang Liwen thought to herself, and couldn't help but think of her apprentice Lian Nishang. It's a pity that after she leaves, Lian Nishang may become Zhong Jingguo's cheap wife. However, compared to hers, his life is still more important. She thinks so. Regardless of whether she appears or not, she cannot change Lian Nishang's fate of eventually marrying Zhong Jiangjie. So, she doesn't feel much guilt about it. But Zuyun can help her heal her eyes, and is a key link. Tang Liwen will naturally treat him differently. Although Zuyun is in danger now, he can protect himself. And he made an appointment with me to meet at Yunzhou Lingjian sect in the future. He wants to return to Lingjian sect. Sun Qiniang's eyes lit up. Tang Liwen nodded, and then said, "Why, are you related to the Lingjian sect?" Senior, the little girl was originally the master of the spirit sword section. Unfortunately, she has been disfigured now. She doesn't want to be seen by some old friends, so the little girl plans to recuperate for a while and return to Yunzhou after her appearance is restored. Senior, please, don't reveal the little girl's news back to Yunzhou. It's up to you. She waved her hand lightly and said, "If you want to go back, for Zuyun's sake, I can go with you." Compared with Qiu Qi, she was naturally willing to let Sun Qiniang lead the way. After all, she could communicate. By the way, it can also help her heal. Although it would not bring her back to her original state, after hearing that Sun Qiniang was injured, she realized with a little spiritual power that there was still fire poison in his body. To her, it was nothing. However, as a Yuanying stage, it is impossible to offer to help a stranger in the Jindan stage to heal his wounds, right? Moreover, Sun Qiniang did not want to go back. "Thank you, Senior," Sun Qiniang said hurriedly. "After I finish my business, I will return to Lingjian section. If you are still in Lingjian sect, I will definitely entertain you well." "No need, I am only in Lingjian sect to meet Zuyun." "Well, I am here only because of Qiu Qi." Speaking of this, she moved her hand slightly, and Qiu Qi flew into her arms. Tang Liwen said, "Xiao Qi, now that people have seen it, it's time to leave, right?" Qiu Qi looked at Sun Qiniang reluctantly, full of guilt. She knew very well that her frightened behavior just now might have hurt Sun Qiniang. Squeak. Thinking about it, she still stretched out her claws and waved to Sun Qiniang as a farewell. Sun Qiniang smiled bitterly. Fortunately, she had accepted the fact these days. As long as she could get into the Fire Dragon sect and get a beauty pill, she would surely be able to restore her appearance. Then, she would find a way to kill the 2 Fire Dragon sect disciples and then find a way to escape back to Yunzhou. She had experienced life and death, and her mind was firm. No one could change her mind at this time. "You can do whatever you want." After that, Tang Liwen's figure quickly disappeared in front of Sun Qiniang. Is this the teleportation of the nascent soul stage? Sun Qiniang looked into the distance and saw Tang Liwen's figure emerging from there, and then she flashed several times in succession, and then she could no longer see it. She sighed, turned to look at the crack, and sighed, "My strength has recovered almost, and it is futile to stay here. Since Zuyun is safe, I will find a way to go to Peeper Realm now. I hope to get into the Fire Dragon sect as soon as possible. I can't wait for a year." Thinking of this, Sun Qiniang decided to leave. She put her sword in her arms and walked forward empty-handed. She fiddled with her bangs as she walked, covering her beautiful side with her hair. She had experienced the 4 lustful disciples of the fire dragon sect, so she could only take precautions. Showing up with an ugly face would surely solve some troubles. As a Jindan stage, she would be relatively safer. But this place was thousands of miles away from the fire dragon section. If Sun Qiniang wanted to go there, she didn't know what kind of danger she would encounter. But after walking for only half a day, Sun Qiniang saw a fiery red figure in the sky again, flashing from time to time. She was shocked and wanted to hide, but this place was all plains, without even a tree, and there was nowhere to hide. So, she stood still and knelt down in the air. This Yuanying stage person who came here was the second time Sun Qiniang had seen it in her life. The first time was Tang Liwen. For the cultivators from Yao realm, it was an unattainable existence, and it was the goal they had to strive for in their lifelong cultivation. But in Peepa realm, if there was a Yuanying stage flying in the sky, the cultivators below, even if they were in the Qi refining stage, would not be able to do so. Therefore, Sun Qiniang immediately attracted the attention of the Yuanying stage cultivator. This kind of posture, is she from Yao realm from the 10,000 mountains? Dan Lao looked down at Sun Qiniang, and when he saw that she was a woman, he immediately had a plan in his mind, so he simply turned around, and the next moment, he appeared in front of Sun Qiniang. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 526. Dan Lao didn't know what happened in Zhongli. After going to Shiwanda Mountain, I really wanted to find some monsters and come back to replace Zuyun in refining the special realm-breaking pill. However, the 100,000 mountains are deep and far away, so it would be somewhat inconvenient for only one person to travel there. Furthermore, if a random person is captured in the Peepa realm, there may be some trouble if he is a figure from other sects and attracts powerful monks from the same realm. He also didn't want to cause trouble for no reason. But looking at Sun Qiniang, she looked like she was here from the Yao realm, and it was obvious that she didn't have any backers. Even if there is, it's nothing. A mere Yao realm, not even a nascent soul stage. No need to worry at all. Where did it come from? Dan Lao spoke indifferently. Feeling Sun Qiniang's strength, it was enough for the early stage of pill formation. Back to senior, I'm from Chuzhu. Yajing Chuzhu. So he came from Shiwanda Mountain. Dan Lao felt happy, as he expected, it couldn't be better. Yes, senior, the little girl got lost in Shiwanda Mountain and somehow ended up here. Sun Qiniang lowered her head and did not dare to look up. Just by listening to the sound, you can tell that the person coming is not good. If you want to live, take this pill. Then follow me to Shiwanda Mountain to do some work. After saying that, Elixir threw out a pill. With his method, Sun Qiniang didn't even need to reach out to catch the elixir, it flew directly into her mouth. Senior, this is... Humph. You are only in the stage of forming a pill, you dare to ask me? I will tell you for the last time, if you want to survive, just take it, and then follow me. Sun Qiniang bit her silver teeth secretly and swallowed the elixir into her belly. I just decided to come out of my hiding place, but I didn't expect to find myself in the tiger's den again. After seeing Sun Qiniang take it, Mr. Dan said calmly, this pill will occur every month, and I need the antidote from me. You are also a pill-forming person, so you must understand what I mean, right? Juniors understand. Sun Qiniang felt sad in her heart. That's fine, just follow me. After saying that, Mr. Dan waved his big hand, and Sun Qiniang was directly controlled and carried flying, one after another, towards the Shiwen mountain. This time, with a henchman, Elijah decided to go deep into Shiwen mountain. Everything we do now is for the heavenly book in the secret realm of the heavenly book. Fire Dragon Sect, in the Treasure House Spirit Gathering Array. After the ice spirit grass was taken away by Wuchideo, Ji Bing could no longer obtain the ice spiritual power condensed by the ice spirit grass. The temperature gradually increased and slowly melted. On the side of the extreme ice, there are two ice sculptures. One is Lian Nishang, and the other is Huo Maoang later. Lian Nishang saw that the ice layer was thicker, but when he looked at Huo Maoang, it was slightly different. Wuchideo didn't know that Huo Maoang had been revived by the ice spiritual power of the ice spirit grass, and he seemed to have a certain resistance to the ice spiritual power. In addition, before coming here, I just swallowed a fire dragon pill. It is true that this fire dragon pill is mixed with another elixir, but there is still no difference in effectiveness from the original fire dragon pill. Because there was no continuous ice spiritual power output from the ice spirit grass, Huo Maoang was left with a breath left to maintain his sanity. However, it was extremely difficult for him to break through the ice. Until the polar ice began to melt. After another long time, Huo Maoang regained his composure and slowly began to use the fire power in his body to fight against the ice spiritual power. Under this ebb and flow, the ice layer on his body began to thin from the inside out, until a few hours later, there was just a click, the ice layer shattered, and he stood up tremblingly. Huo Maoang was in low spirits, but he didn't care too much about himself. After swallowing some pills to replenish his spiritual power and a fire dragon pill, he gathered his energy and condensed his spiritual fire to burn on the extreme ice. Extreme ice melts naturally and not very quickly. But under Huo Maoang's full strength, the temperature in the cave immediately rose. Not only did Ji Bing melt quickly, but the ice cubes on Lian Nishang's body also slowly melted away. I'm not dead. Suddenly, the sound of Lian Nishang came from the ice sculpture. Lian Fairy, wait a moment. Huo Maoang squeezed out a few words from his mouth. It was also difficult for him. A few more hours passed, and Lian Nishang escaped from the ice sculpture. His face was pale, and the bright red clothes made him look even more sickly. Apparently, she was frozen here and almost died. Refining Fairy, swallow one, fire dragon pill. Huo Maoang poured out 2 pills with difficulty, one for her and one for himself. Lian Nishang did not hesitate. Although his thinking was slow, he also knew that he needed to replenish his body's firepower at this time to be able to resist the ice poison. The two of them sat up almost side by side, each refining a fire dragon pill, and Lian Nishang felt much more comfortable. Thank you for saving me. This ice spirit grass, hey, where is the ice spirit grass? Lian Nishang was saying thank you, but she suddenly realized that something was wrong. Inside the cave, the temperature was suitable, and when she looked at the ice spirit grass, it was gone. Upon hearing this, Huo Maoang gritted his teeth and said, Fairy Lian, I was plotted by a traitor, and the ice spirit grass must have been taken away by him. Now he has disappeared. If I hadn't had the experience of being frozen once, I'm afraid both you and I would freeze to death here. Taken away. Lian Nishang's face was full of disbelief. Someone came to steal the treasure of the mighty fire dragon sect? When did the fire dragon sect get in so easily? Fairy Lian, have you recovered a little? I think you should go back to the Den Pavilion and report this to Elder Den. It's been at least a day. Lian Nishang immediately smiled bitterly and said, No, Master went to Shiwanda Mountain. Even if everything goes well, it will take at least a month to come back. Then report to the sect master. Lian Nishang shook his head again and said, There have been so many things going on in the sect recently. I'm afraid that if I go to the sect leader, I'll be asking for trouble. What should I do? Huo Maoang hesitated and said, Since there is nothing you and I can do, we can only find a way to expel the cold ice poison from the body. Fairy Lian, I don't have much left of the fire dragon pill. If it is not solved as soon as possible, if it happens, get up, it hurts so much. Are you looking for, Hu Qinjue? Lian Nishang's eyes lit up. Although she knew that Zhu Yun was fake Huo Qinjue, Huo Maoang was indeed saved by him. At this time, the spiritual fire in his body, already under the invasion of ice spiritual power, was on the verge of collapse and almost extinguished. Let's go find Huo Qinjue. Lian Nishang decided immediately. The two stood up, tremblingly walked out of the cave, and walked towards the outside of the treasure house. After finally leaving the treasury, it attracted criticism from the two disciples who guarded the treasury. After seeing them walking away, one of them said, "Why are Fairy Lian and the new disciple of the Dan Pavilion so breathless? I'm afraid. The white-haired old man who followed us in earlier came out early. Could it be that Fairy Lian was afraid that he would get in the way, so she kicked him out first? It's possible. Do you want to tell the young sect master? After all, Fairy Lian and the young sect master are engaged. This matter, are you not afraid that Fairy Lian will be angry with you? Hey, what are you afraid of? If you don't tell me, if I don't tell you, who will know that it was us who told the secret? But fairy refining is really powerful. It's been a day and a night. I'm afraid that the ice spirit grass they took is fake, and the dual cultivation is real." Lian Nishang and Huo Maoang didn't know that their exhausted appearance would lead to malicious speculation, and that someone was even going to inform Zhong Jiangjie. Now the two of them rushed towards the valley in one breath. Zhu Yun had just digested most of the formation knowledge when he was interrupted by a weak voice outside the formation. He looked outside and saw someone standing next to Lian Nishang. It was Huo Maoang. He frowned slightly, only to realize that these two people seemed to have suffered a lot of injuries. Is the sect undergoing drastic changes again? Has it affected the disciples in the Danji stage? Zhu Yun rushed towards the entrance of the valley while using the Shattering Void spiritual eye technique. When I saw this, I suddenly realized. Under the Paku spiritual eye technique, both of them were actually carrying icy aura, like streaks of smoke. What happened to them? Zhu Yun pondered for a moment, then took out a talisman of changing heaven and earth, pasted it on his forehead, transformed it into the form of fire again, and then walked to the entrance of the valley in person. Lian Nishang had seen his true face, but Huo Maoang didn't. What happened to you? Did you go to an extremely cold place? Zhu Yun welcomed the two people in and closed the formation door smoothly. Senior brother Qinjue, it's a long story. Huo Maoang exhaled, sat down directly on the ground, and said, I originally wanted to help Fairy Lian get the ice spirit grass, but I was plotted against by a newcomer. Plot? Zhu Yun frowned. Yes, that old guy said that he could help me detoxify from the ice spirit cold poison, so he needed to get close to the ice spirit grass. Who would have thought that after he got close, he would directly injure him, and I would be frozen. And then he took the ice spirit grass and ran away. What? Ice spirit grass is also one of Zhu Yun's goals, but he doesn't need it urgently. Senior brother Qinjue, junior brother, I finally saved Fairy Lian. Let's not talk about other things. You should save her first. Lian Nishang looked fine, but in fact the cold poison had already entered his internal organs. For those of them who majored in training exercises, this was equivalent to a severe poison. Okay, without further ado, if you have anything to say, we'll talk to you later. I'll save Fairy Lian first. You go sit in the pavilion for a while and I'll help you. After that, Zhu Yun took Lian Nishang into the wooden house, and casually set up a 9-turn 9-yang formation. Little did I know. One of the disciples guarding the treasure house has already passed the news to Zhong Jiangjie. And he, with a gloomy face, was rushing towards this place in a hurry. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 527. As Zhong Jingguo's beloved son, Zhong Jiangjio already knew the whole story. I just can't figure out why Lian Nishang and Huo Maoang are still heading towards the valley. Along the way, Zhong Jiangjio couldn't figure it out. Could it be that Lian Nishang didn't know that her second master Tang Liwen had escaped? As for not returning to the Dan Pavilion, it may be because Huo Maoang is a new Dan Pavilion disciple and is afraid of causing trouble. So I chose the valley. But isn't there a high bridge in the valley? Zhong Jiangjio's face was gloomy. In the past, he had Zhong Yingxia by his side to help him make suggestions. But at this time, Zhong Yingxia was in confinement, and there was no one person to help him with advice. He decided to confront him. The other Huo Maoang, a mere newcomer who had just entered the Dan Pavilion, was simply killed. He now sees the situation within the sect very clearly. Now that my father is in control of the overall situation, no one will trouble him for an ordinary disciple of the Foreign Affairs Hall. Not to mention, Dan Lao still obeyed his father. Thinking of this, Zhong Jiangjio's mood improved a lot. He doesn't care about anything, he only cares that the Yuanyin that refines Nishang is still there. Anyway, when the time comes, he and Lian Nishang will break up, and at worst, he will kill her in the secret realm of the Book of Heaven. And I had already reached nascent soul at that time, and I was afraid that it would be too late for others to curry favor with me. At this time, in the wooden house, Lian Nishang had already passed out. Although he had swallowed a fire dragon pill before, it was still a drop in the bucket for Lian Nishang. To the mouth of the valley, we struggled to hold on. After finally entering the wooden house, he completely lost consciousness. Lian Nishang, Lian Nishang. Zuyun sighed and helped her get into a good posture, with her 5 hearts facing upwards. He then went around her back and put a pair of palms against her. It's so cold. It's even colder than Huo Maoang at that time. Zuyun almost shuddered. Lian Nishang made him feel more like a piece of ice. Also, when she was freezing, the ice spirit grass was in full bloom. At that time, Huo Maoang had elder elixir at his side to guide him, and he was also given magical weapons to protect him from the cold. But thanks to the fact that Lian Nishang possesses spiritual fire and is still at the level of earth fire, she was able to save her breath. However, if Zuyun didn't help, she might freeze to death. Zuyun condensed the power of chaos and transformed it into the purest fire spirit power, which was continuously input into the golden elixir for refining Nishang. After the weak spiritual fire was replenished, it was like a spark hitting a flammable object, immediately fueling the flames. Most people from the Fire Dragon sect practice the spiritual fire symbiosis technique. As long as the spiritual fire remains in the body, they will basically not die. It is precisely because of this that Lian Nishang was able to save his life at that time. After stabilizing Lian Nishang's vitality, Zuyun breathed a sigh of relief, and then he called out Fen Tianyan from his heart. Don't scare that spiritual fire out. Zuyun carefully ordered Fen Tianyan in his mind. After Fen Tianyan entered, Zuyun also poured in his spiritual consciousness, just because he was afraid that Fen Tianyan would suddenly be unable to restrain himself and directly swallow Lian Nishang's earthly fire. But in fact, Zuyun's worries were unnecessary. As the time spent being nourished by the fire spirit pearl became longer and longer, the connection between Zuyun and Fen Tianyan became closer. Today's fire spirit bead is no longer just a spirit bead, but a part of Zuyun's body. Naturally, while Fen Tianyan is slowly strengthening, he will also be affected by Zuyun. Burning sky flame turned into filamentous fire power, and began to expel the remaining ice spirit cold poison along Lian Nishang's 9 veins. Having the experience of helping Huo Maoang, Zuyun, and Fen Tianyan were quite familiar with it. In a short time, most of the cold poison in Lian Nishang's meridians had been driven away. Realizing that Lian Nishang would wake up soon, Zuyun quickly let Fen Tianyan return to the fire spirit pearl. Did you save me? Lian Nishang faintly opened her eyes and said subconsciously. It's me, how do you feel now? Zuyun also stood up and deliberately kept a certain distance. After all, Lian Nishang is a female cultivator who is engaged. Even if she is very likely to kill Zhong Jiangjao in the secret realm of the Book of Heaven. But before that, Zhu Yundu needs to pay attention to his identity. Thank you, Huo Qinjue. Lian Nishang exhaled a breath of turbid air, and her whole body became much warmer, not as cold and mechanical as before. No, you still need to rest for a while. I won't be able to completely eliminate the cold poison of this ice spirit grass in just a short while. Zuyun is telling the truth. The cold poison in Danshan has not moved yet. She needs to rely on herself for these. Zuyun did not dare to let Fen Tianyan enter it. Not only was he afraid that Fen Tianyan would swallow her earth fire, but he was also afraid that Fen Tianyan would directly melt the golden elixir. It's much better now. The cold poison in the golden elixir is nothing to worry about. Lian Nishang was full of confidence, and after feeling it carefully, he spoke seriously. At this time, she was extremely lucky to come to Zuyun. If she returns to Dan Pavilion without Elder Dan around, I'm afraid she will definitely die. By the way, where is Huo Maoang? Without him this time, I might have died too. Lian Nishang's speech became much smoother and he asked quickly. He's still outside. You go and take a rest. I'll help him get rid of the cold poison. Zuyun nodded slightly, waved his hand, and the gate of the 9 Turns and 9 Suns formation opened, and the two of them saw Huo Maoang in the pavilion at a glance. Fairy Lian, senior brother Qinjue. That's great. Huo Maoang said excitedly. It's your turn now, come in. By the way, Fairy Lian, you are familiar with this valley, so you can just wander around. Fen Tianyan was one of Zuyun's trump cards, and there was no way he would let Lian Nishang know about it. Okay, I know the valley well. Lian Nishang also had self-awareness and walked out of the house with a smile. After Huo Maoang entered, Zuyun closed the formation door again and added another change to the 9 Turns and 9 Suns formation. That is to completely isolate the wooden house from the outside. Lian Nishang knows a little about the formation, but he still needs to be more careful. Operating the 9 Turns and 9 Suns formation to its extreme, unless Zuyun forcibly breaks the formation himself, no movement can be heard from outside. Maoang, are you ready? Zuyun stood behind Huo Maoang and said. Get ready, senior brother Qinjue. Huo Maoang's energy was pretty good, but he also consumed a lot of energy while waiting to refine his clothes. Before that, he also swallowed a fire dragon pill for support. But just as he sat down cross-legged and took a good posture, Zuyun's eyes narrowed, he put his hand behind his Tianling cap, and suddenly gathered the power of chaos and rushed towards Huo Maoang's Zifu. Huo Maoang was caught off guard and immediately lost his mind and passed out. The wooden house was also messed up by Zuyun's sudden surge of spiritual power, making a lot of noise. Phew, he exhaled and said helplessly, I can't help it, I can't let you see my burning sky flame. This is also the main reason why Zuyun strengthened the formation. Then, Zuyun followed the same method and helped Huo Maoang get rid of the cold poison. Just when he was concentrating on helping Huo Maoang, Zhong Jiangjao rushed to the entrance of the valley. Lian Nishang, come out quickly. Zhong Jiangjiao's voice spread into the valley and fell into the ears of Lian Nishang, who had just been sitting in the pavilion. Why is he here? Lian Nishang was shocked and felt something was wrong. When I came to the valley with Huo Maoang, I didn't meet anyone along the way. While he was doubting, Zhong Jiangjao urged him a few more times, including threats. Don't force me to forcefully break this formation. If your second master is not here, I don't believe you can run this star-moving formation to defeat me. This is true. In Tang Luan's hands, the star-shifting formation can compete with Nascent Soul. But in Lian Nishang's hands, it didn't work. Although Lian Nishang is powerful, if he fights with the formation, he will only be beaten passively. As long as Zhong Jiangjao doesn't join the formation, she really doesn't have much else to do. I also thought that this formation would be one of Zuyun's means to settle down here in the future, but it must not be broken. In desperation, she decided to meet up with him. It was best to send Zhong Jiangjao away, so as not to wait until he influenced Zuyun to detoxify Huo Maoang. What's the matter with you? Lian Nishang walked to the mouth of the valley and said to Zhong Jiangjao expressionlessly. A trace of disgust could not help but emerge in his expression. However, she also felt a little strange not seeing Xianxia, who had always been inseparable from Zhong Jiangjao. What's the matter? I'm here to ask you about your good deeds. Zhong Jiangjao snorted coldly and said. My good deed? Lian Nishang was slightly stunned and said angrily, so my death is a good thing for you. Dead. Zhong Jiangjao was even more confused about the reason, thinking that Lian Nishang had deliberately changed the subject, and sneered, is it because you want to die? As he spoke, he looked at Lian Nishang up and down. His spiritual power was indeed a little weak, and he couldn't help but feel even colder in his heart. Lian Nishang, you need to know your identity. You are my fiancé, Zhong Jiangjao. Now, come out with me. After saying that, he reached out and grabbed Lian Nishang. But Lian Nishang reacted very quickly, and although his spiritual power was weak, he didn't use much just to dodge. Not to mention, she was still in the formation at this time. As long as she took a step back, Zhong Jiangjao would not be able to touch him. Well. Zhong Jiangjao was furious and said, Lian Nishang, you can hang out with others in the treasure house, but I, the fiancé in name, can't touch you. You have become a bitch and you have to build a memorial arch. You really treat me like a belle. Isn't Zhang Ao angry? What did you say? Hanging out in the treasure house. Lian Nishang's chest heaved violently with anger, and his eyes were full of disbelief. Thinking that he almost died in the treasure house, he still had to face Zhong Jiangjiao's slander. This kind of person has the nerve to say he is my fiancé and keeps saying he loves me. Zhong Jiangjiao, yes, I am fooling around with someone, so do you still want to marry me as your Taoist companion? Why wait to kill someone in a secret realm? Lian Nishang couldn't wait to kill Zhong Jiangjao right now. Okay, very good. Lian Nishang, since you are so ignorant, don't blame me for being rude. Zhong Jiang was proud that without Xianxia by his side, he couldn't control his reason at all, so he hit the Dozhuan scene shifting formation with just one palm. Lian Nishang moved and immediately stepped on a secondary formation hole on his side. He turned his hand and pinched the formation technique. The eyes of all the formations lit up, and they withstood Zhong Jiangjiao's blow. But Lian Nishang thought that Zuyun would have to rely on this formation to survive in the future, so he stepped out of the formation again, reached out and slapped Zhong Jiangjao with his palm. Whoops! The earth fire, which had been warmed by the pure fire power transformed by Zuyun's chaos power, blasted past with traces of ice spiritual power. Do you think you are the only one who only has earth fire? Zhong Jiangjao slapped back his palm, and a more powerful flame turned into a fire dragon and rushed forward. Boom! The two flames collided and immediately made a loud noise. Zhong Jiangjiao's earth fire seemed to be more powerful, and it engulfed Lian Nishang's flame in a blink of an eye, and the momentum was even more amazing, sweeping Lian Nishang's whole body. Zhong Jiangjao, I didn't expect you to hide your strength. Lian Nishang's eyes flashed a gloomy look, and she dodged and shouted. Just when the flame was about to hit the air, Zhong Jiangjao took out a folding fan, raised his hand, and danced in the air. The fire suddenly surged, and Lian Nishang had no way to avoid it. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 528. Lian Nishang had nowhere to go, so she could only hide in the Dozhuan formation. Boom! The boundless sea of fire hit the formation. Suddenly, the whole valley shook. But Zhu Yun reinforced the Juzhuan-Juyang formation, and could not detect what was happening outside. Compared with Lian Nishang, Huo Maoyang's situation was even worse. Admittedly, he had experienced the Bingling cold poison once. But the cold poison in his body was not completely expelled, and it came again. These cold poisons almost penetrated into the bone marrow. However, he just had a little more experience, so he looked better than Lian Nishang. At this time, Zhu Yun needed to be more careful and difficult to force the cold poison out of his body. Concentrating so hard, he didn't even notice the shaking of the wooden house. Outside the formation, Zhong Jiangjao sneered. Lian Nishang had successfully aroused his anger. Without Zhong Yingxia to give him advice, no one reminded him to control his emotions and stay rational. Watch me blast this broken formation, I want to see who else can support you. After that, Zhong Jiangjao used all his spiritual power, with flames in his left hand and a folding fan in his right hand. The boundless sea of fire instantly enveloped the wall of the Dozhuan formation in front of him. Lian Nishang's face was extremely ugly. She clearly felt that the spiritual power in the formation was constantly being consumed. In her current state, she was more than enough to protect herself, but it was not so easy to maintain the Dozhuan formation. But now, Zhu Yun was healing Huo Maoyang again. What should he do? For a while, Lian Nishang was anxious, like an ant on a hot pot, pacing back and forth. This scene, in the eyes of the crazy Zhong Jiangjao, undoubtedly fueled his arrogance. Ha ha ha, Lian Nishang, be sensible and come out obediently. Otherwise, when the formation is destroyed, you will suffer. He had completely disregarded the consequences and frantically drove his spiritual power to bombard the Dozhuan formation. Little did he know that this movement had already alarmed Zhong Jingguo. Just as the Dozhuan formation was about to be broken, a figure appeared out of thin air. Aoer, what are you doing? Zhong Jingguo just stretched out his index finger, and the sea of fire suddenly disappeared, as if it had never appeared. Dad. Zhong Jiangjao was shocked, the scarlet in his eyes faded, and he also regained his sanity. Humph. Zhong Jingguo snorted coldly, and then looked at Lian Nishang, suddenly relaxed his expression, and smiled. Nishang, what is this kid crazy about, didn't scare you? No. No. Lian Nishang seemed a little unaccustomed to Zhong Jingguo's attitude, and shook her head subconsciously. Dad, you. What do you mean by you? Zhong Jingguo slapped Zhong Jiangjao and he was immediately knocked out. With an incredible look on his face, Zhong Jiangjao fell far away. He then said to Lian Nishang, Nishang, Aoer has encountered a bottleneck in his cultivation recently, so his temper has become a little violent. Please don't be offended. You are not injured, right? Thank you for your concern, Master. Nishang is fine. Lian Nishang bowed her head slightly. She didn't know that the culprit who wanted to harm her was the person in front of her. It's good that he's all right. I'll let him reflect with Yingxia, and then let him out when the heavenly book secret realm is opened. By the way, why are you here? Are you here to find your second master? Lian Nishang almost let it slip, and when the words came to her lips, she hurriedly said, Sect Master, the ice spirit grass in the sect was stolen by a cultivator who sneaked in. I was poisoned by the cold of the ice spirit grass, so I wanted to go to the earth veins to expel the cold poison. At that time, a disciple from the Den Pavilion saved me. Maybe, the young master misunderstood like this. What? Zhong Jingguo's face suddenly condensed. He thought that with so many disciples, some villains would definitely sneak in, but he didn't expect that someone could sneak into the treasure house. Tell me the whole story quickly, and let me see who dared to steal things from my fire dragon sect. Lian Nishang saw that she had diverted the other party's attention. While she was relieved, she told her what Huo Maoang had told her. In just a cup of tea, Zhong Jingguo knew the general situation. I already know. By the way, how is the cold poison in your body now? Reporting to the sect master, it's almost done. Just rest for a few days and it will be expelled. So, take these pills. Don't be polite. This is the sect master's apology for Ao's rudeness. Zhong Jingguo took out a bottle of pills and put it in Lian Nishang's hand. When he turned around, he said, "You may not know that Elder Tang has defected from the section. This place is guarded by the sect master's disciple of the Tianzhen section, but it doesn't matter. He will go to the heavenly book secret realm at that time." "Yes, sect master. Nishang knows." "Okay, then this sect master will send someone to chase the person who stole the ice spirit grass." After saying that, he jumped up and grabbed Zhong Jiangjao in the air. "Dad, why did you hit me?" Zhong Jiangjao said dissatisfiedly, but he lowered his voice and turned his back to Lian Nishang, so he was not afraid of being discovered. The palm strike just now seemed to be powerful, but in fact it did not cause any damage. "Are you mentally ill?" Zhong Jingguo said coldly, "I finally found you a Lian Nishang who can help you break through the nascent soul stage, but you almost ruined it. Tell me, what's wrong with your brain?" "Dad. You can't blame me for this. She was fooling around with the disciples of Dan Pavilion in the treasury." "Shut up." Zhong Jingguo said angrily, "Did you see it with your own eyes? Who is Lian Nishang? She even likes you, how could she like ordinary disciples?" "But. No buts, I already know why Lian Nishang was in the treasury with ordinary disciples. And, when I gave her the elixir just now, I also found out that she was still a virgin. Her Yuanyan is still there, don't worry. Next, don't stay in the sect to cause trouble for me, go and be with your sister, and learn from others how to use your brain. I don't know why you two were born at the same time, but there is such a big gap." Zhong Jiangjao could see that his father was really angry, and he kept silent. But he was still relieved. Since Lian Nishang's Yuanyan is still there, that's good. Anyway, when I succeed in forming a baby, I can get any beauty I want. Yes, I know. As he spoke, Zhong Jingguo had returned to the sect master's hall. After letting Zhong Jiangjao find Xianxia, he immediately summoned several nascent soul stage cultivators. Someone sneaked into the sect's treasury and stole the ice spirit grass. That person was at the peak of the late Jindan stage. He was originally a sword cultivator and was brought in by the second elder's disciple Yan Xingxi. "Go find him and find out the reason, and then chase him." "Yes, sect master." When the few people heard that the sect was robbed, they were also extremely shocked. Stealing treasures is a small matter, but if the matter spreads, the reputation will be great. The Fire Dragon sect is at least a leading sect within 1,000 miles. But a Jindan stage cultivator sneaked into the treasury? How could this be tolerated? Immediately, these nascent soul stage cultivators immediately found Yan Xingxi, asked about the ins and outs of entering the sect, and hurriedly left the sect. And Yan Xingxi was completely dumbfounded. The backer he wanted to find ended up letting him lead the thief into the house. Thinking of the familiar conversation he had with his fellow apprentices, Yan Xingxi felt cold all over. How could he dare to stay in the Fire Dragon sect? At the moment, no one in the sect was bothering him, and they probably had no time to care about him. When the sword was found, he would be crippled if not dead. Escape. Yan Xingxi made a prompt decision and decided to escape from the Fire Dragon sect. It would be best if escape to Yejing through the Shiwen Mountains. With my Danja realm, I can live comfortably there. In the valley, Lian Nishang held the elixir in her hand. She knew what kind of elixir it was. Zhong Jingguo's masterpiece, even Dan Lao had envied the recipe of this elixir. It was the main reason why Zhong Jingguo won the position of the sect master at that time. Because this elixir was developed by Zhong Jingguo himself. Fire Spirit Immortal Pill. The name of the elixir has the word immortal, which is enough to explain the mystery of this elixir. The effect is more than 100 times stronger than the Fire Dragon Pill. More importantly, this Fire Spirit Pill can almost remove all impurities in the body that affect cultivation with its completely pure fire power. For cultivators who practice fire-related techniques, including those with spiritual fire in their bodies, it is worthy of the name of a fairy pill. There is also cold poison in Lian Nishang's golden pill. But if you take this pill and help the earth fire in your body, you can get rid of all the cold poison in one fell swoop. It may even make her strength improve a lot. Zhong Jingguo can only refine 3 such precious pills in a year. But this bottle has more than 10 pills. Just as she was staring at the pill in a daze, the wooden door on Zhu Yun's side opened. After looking around for a while, the 2 figures saw her standing at the entrance of the valley and walked towards the side quickly. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 529. Hey, what kind of elixir is this? Zhu Yun caught a glimpse of the fire spirit elixir at a glance. With his alchemy skills, he could naturally tell that this elixir was absolutely extraordinary. The elixir is round, and if you look at it from a distance, it is almost the same as a fire spirit bead. And as he got closer, he discovered that this elixir contained extremely huge fire spiritual power. Even Zhu Yun felt that Fen Tianyan had a slight movement at this time. If he and Fen Tianyan hadn't been closely connected at this moment and forced it not to be exposed, I'm afraid that Fen Tianyan would have rushed out and swallowed the pill at this moment. Zhu Yun asked, and was shocked again. Lian Nishang stood at the mouth of the valley. There were more mysterious elixirs. Could it be that Elder Dan was back? But could my Ike come here? He didn't believe it. This was given by the sect master. Just now Zhong Jiangjao came. Lian Nishang glanced at Huo Maoang and said with a wry smile, I wonder who sent the message that you and I were doing something shameful in the treasure house. What? Huo Maoang's eyes widened immediately, and then he said, I wouldn't dare even if you gave me 10 courages. Zhu Yun frowned and said, is this elixir of the sect master an apology to you? This elixir looks extremely precious, I think. Before he finished speaking, he was interrupted by Huo Maoang, Senior Brother Chinjua, could it be that you didn't recognize it? This is the Fire Spirit Elixir. Fire Spirit Elixir. Zhu Yun was shocked, just hearing this name was not impressive. However, he specially used another talisman of changing heaven and earth, not to avoid being recognized by Huo Maoang, but he also made a ha-ha and said, I haven't finished speaking yet, of course I recognize this is the Fire Spirit Elixir. What I mean is that the sect master personally apologized to the young sect master, it seems that things are not that simple. Ah! Hearing this, Lian Nishang was also shocked and said, then shall I return this elixir? Huo Maoang licked his lips and said, Fairy Lian, this elixir can definitely get rid of the remaining ice spirit cold poison in our bodies. If this comes back. Lian Nishang looked at Zhu Yun. She was a little confused at this time and couldn't make a decision. Zhu Yun thought for a while and said, yes, since the sect master gave it to you, you can just take it back. By the way, what happened to the young sect master later? The sect master said that Zhong Jiangjao was trapped. They fought in the Dan Pavilion before, and Zhong Yingxia was also imprisoned. This time the 2 of them are expected to be imprisoned together. They will not be able to come out until the secret realm of the Book of Heaven is opened. Zhu Yun touched his chin, then turned to Huo Maoang and said, how about you go back to the Dan Pavilion first? Fairy Lian and I still have something to say. Huo Maoang looked away from the fire spirit pill with some reluctance. Lian Nishang understood, smiled casually, and handed over the elixir. Nyo, here you go. This, refining fairy, this elixir is so precious. Huo Maoang wanted it but didn't dare to ask for it. Take it, if it weren't for you, I might have died in the treasure house. At that time, I dreamed that I turned into a piece of ice and had ice grass growing on my body. Zuyun just wanted to send Huo Maoang away at this time, and said with a smile, Fairy Lian is given to you, just take it. Why don't you give Fairy Lian face? Yes, yes. Thank you Fairy Lian, thank you senior brother Chinjua. You're welcome, Zuyun waved his hand, get out of here. Good class. Huo Maoang left the valley without stopping and ran towards the Dan pavilion. Lian Nishang immediately waved her hand and closed the gate of the Dozhuan seeing shifting formation. She knew that Zuyun had something to say to her. Otherwise, it would be inappropriate for her to stay here. Fairy Lian, I'm afraid the sect master will be unfavorable to you, however, I think it is more likely to be related to Zhongjiangjao. Lian Nishang smiled bitterly and said, Huo Chinjua, how can I say this? Zuyun's eyes flashed, he had seen too many intrigues. Since I set foot on the road to immortality, I have either been in intrigues or intrigues. Even when he stayed in the Fire Dragon sect, he had a fight with Zhong Jingguo and Tianzhenzi. He could know what happened just from what Lian Nishang recounted. It was extraordinary. Logically speaking, regardless of Lian Nishang's plans, in Zhong Jingguo's eyes, she should be his future daughter-in-law. Even if Zhong Jiangjao went too far in some things, he could apologize, but taking out this kind of elixir was like being attentive. The meaning of this is self-evident. It's a pity that Zuyun couldn't guess no matter what Zhong Jiangjao and Zhong Jingguo want is Yuanyan who refines the colorful clothes. That's why Zhong Jingguo would lower his face and use his identity as a Yuanying ancestor and elder to make Lian Nishang not care about the past. But at least Zuyun had guessed the other party's evil intentions. Fairy Lian, if you think about it from the perspective of the sect leader, you can figure out the unreasonableness. I can't guess the specific details. In short, just pay more attention to it. From my guess, it may be possible it will happen when the secret realm of the heavenly book is opened. Lian Nishang said seriously, no matter what, in the secret realm of the book of heaven, I will definitely kill him. Well. Zuyun sighed and said no more words. Lian Nishang continued, Huo Chinjua, I am going back too. After listening to your words, I think the sect master asked them to retreat, more likely to let them practice with peace of mind. So I want to practice too. I just fought with Zhong Jiangjao, and I found that he actually hid a lot of strength. Moreover, he has the earth fire. This is something I never knew. It seems that they really have some plans. But I don't know whether they are planning the treasure in the secret realm or something else. It's good that you can think so, Zuyun also said seriously, sometimes, you can't trust anyone. Lian Nishang tilted her head and said, can't I trust you either? Zuyun was choked, but remembering what Sun Suanhua had said to him, he nodded solemnly and said, yes, you can't trust me either. Lian Nishang was stunned. He didn't expect that Zuyun, whom he trusted so much, would actually admit it. His heart was in a mess and he said in disbelief, but you saved my life. Zuyun joked, yes, I saved your life. But, it seems that you don't even know my name now. Lian Nishang suddenly remembered that it was true. Although she called the man in front of her Huo Chinjua, she already knew that he was not Huo Chinjua. At that time, Tang Liwen uncovered the heaven-changing talisman on Zuyun's forehead in front of her. Thinking of this, Lian Nishang touched Zuyun's forehead again. The speed was so fast that even Zuyun didn't react. Lian Nishang actually thought of uncovering his talisman. Without noticing, the talisman was taken off immediately, and the original appearance of Zuyun was also presented to Lian Nishang. No matter what your name is, I remember your face. Lian Nishang saw Zuyun's bitter face, and suddenly felt relieved for no reason in her heart, and left the valley with a smile. Zuyun was left alone in the valley. I really don't know what she was thinking, I'm telling you, the cruelty of the world of cultivation. Zuyun shook his head and turned back to the wooden house. He still had to continue studying the formation and drawing talismans. If there was still time left, he had to try to learn how to draw talismans. And find a way to enter the habitat to see if he could hit the fire dragon. However, the fire dragon was a serious matter, and the other party was in the realm of the Demon King, so he had to be fully prepared before entering there. Otherwise, the fire dragon would probably burn him to ashes if he sneezed. With the departure of Lian Nishang, the valley returned to its former tranquility. In the fire dragon sect, Zhong Jingguo was in power, and everything was running in an orderly manner. The disciples of the Internal Affairs Hall were almost all dead or injured, and after Wu Chidao entered the sect to steal, the Fire Dragon sect stopped accepting people. No one cared about the affairs of the valley anymore. Zhong Jiangjao and Zhong Yingxia seemed to be in seclusion, but in fact they were also stepping up their cultivation. Lian Nishang was the same. In this way, it was much more stable than before. But the Peeper realm was a little chaotic because of this. The news of a big battle outside the demon control holy sect spread like wildfire. I don't know who spread the news, from Yao Wuxi fighting against 3 Yuanyings, 2 died and 1 was injured, to 1 against 3, and all 3 Yuanyings in the late peak died at his hands. Later, it became that all 300 Yuanyings of the Fire Dragon sect died in the demon control holy mountain. As a result, countless major sects wanted to find out the truth, and sent their elders with status to visit the demon control sect. Unfortunately, the demon control sect closed the mountain and did not see visitors. Moreover, they did not have much friendship with them. Yao Wuxi was recovering from his injuries, so he naturally refused to let them in. A few months later, outside the demon control sect's mountain protection formation, dozens of people at the peak of the late nascent soul stage were standing. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 530. 100,000 Mountains. Sun Qinyang pierced the body of a monster beast with her sword, then skillfully turned the sword edge, and a monster pill was dug out. Your talent in swordsmanship is indeed extraordinary. If you practice a single golden spirit root to the extreme, you may be able to become a baby. Not far behind him, Dan Lao had a strange look in his eyes. A few months later, they went deep into Shiwen Mountain and hunted many monsters. However, he didn't meet the Demon King, so Mr. Dan didn't take any action, leaving Sun Qinyang to take care of it. Sun Qinyang also used this to improve her swordsmanship a lot. Elder Dan was very satisfied and rewarded Sun Qinyang with a lot of elixirs. Her injuries miraculously completely recovered. There is even a hint of a breakthrough. Originally, the practice of swordsmanship was mainly through the understanding of the sword. Sun Qinyang had the talent of Jian Tianming, and after 2 lifetimes as a human being, her brain was extremely bright, so she was a blessing in disguise. Of course, for this so-called blessing to be considered a real blessing, it is still necessary for Mr. Elixir to let Sun Qinyang go. Senior Dan, 1,000 demon pills for fire monsters should be enough, right? Sun Qinyang shook her sword, and the blood stains on it instantly slipped away and became extremely smooth. It's almost the same. Mr. Dan looked at Sun Qinyang and said, I have met a lot of monks from the Yao realm. I even accepted a disciple from the Yao realm back then. It's a pity that my mind is not right. From this old man, learned the skill and then escaped. Sun Qinyang was surprised and said, Senior Dan said he has evil intentions, but I think he is a fool. It is a great blessing to be able to learn skills from Senior Dan, but he still wants to run away. Sun Qinyang is an eccentric person. She seems to be criticizing his disciples' behavior, but in fact she is flattering Mr. Dan. Ha ha ha, little girl, you can talk. But according to what you said, are you willing to follow me back to the sect? Although you use swordsmanship, I can't teach you anything. However, under my elixir, you can. It's not bad to be a steward in the pavilion and teach those disobedient disciples. Sun Qinyang's heart trembled, this elder Dan. But in an instant, she made a decision in her heart. In front of the nascent soul stage, she had no choice at all. Thank you for your love, Senior. I am definitely very happy. However, you also know my current situation. I can't stand others with my face. Sun Qinyang still wanted to give it a try. After all, her goal was the Fire Dragon sect. And she didn't know that Elder Dan belonged to the Fire Dragon sect. Ha ha ha, little girl, are you testing me on purpose? Elder Dan laughed loudly, and then said, I am the elder of the Dan Pavilion of the Fire Dragon sect. Your appearance does not look like you were born with it, but you were burned by fire the day after tomorrow. Since it is a traumatic injury, I naturally have a way to treat it. One pill will help you. It's just Yan Dan. If you are willing, follow me back to the Fire Dragon section. I will reward you with as many pills as you want. However, if you join my Dan Pavilion, you need to do your job as a deacon, otherwise I won't blame you for being rude. Speaking of this, Elder E also said sternly. And when Sun Qinyang heard that she was from the Fire Dragon sect, how could she possibly refuse? Immediately, she said softly, it turns out that Senior Dan is an elder of the Fire Dragon sect. That's great. The little girl also wanted to go to the Fire Dragon sect to ask for the elixir. What a coincidence. Elder Dan harvested thousands of fire-type demon pills, all of which were caused by Sun Qinyang, so he would like her no matter how he looked at her. Of course, because Sun Qinyang had always covered the other half of her face, she was not seen much by Elder Dan. In that case, let's leave. I haven't been back for several months, and I don't know how the clan is doing now. Dan Lao couldn't help but think of Lian Nishang. He thought to himself, I hope that old boy Zhong Jingguo doesn't push Nishang too hard. The two stood up, one behind the other, and flew quickly towards the outside of Shiwanda Mountain. They have been deep into the mountains for a long time, and it will probably take another month to get back. Moreover, the closer you get to the Peepa realm, the Shiwanda mountain also suppresses the nascent soul stage. This is why there are very few nascent soul stages from the Peepa realm to the 100,000 mountains, because they are afraid that hostile forces with bad intentions are waiting for them. However, this place is far away from that side, so there is nothing oppressive about it. However, not long after the two of them flew, a golden light suddenly flew over the sky. The golden light was so fast that I couldn't even see what it was. After hovering in mid-air for several times, he suddenly rushed towards Mr. Dan, who was rushing ahead. Not good. Elder Dan's expression changed, and he pinched his fingers to create a flame, and threw it towards the golden light. Boom! The flames rose immediately after taking action, and instantly turned into a wall of fire, shooting towards the golden light. But the golden light turned a blind eye and actually passed through the wall of fire. After a loud noise, the wall of fire collapsed and immediately dissipated between heaven and earth. At the same time, the terrifying demon power was locked on Dan Lao. Demon King. Elder Dan's face changed drastically. He was not good at fighting. He was all about elixirs. Facing the menacing golden light, he dared not linger. He even ignored Sun Qinyang. He teleported several times in succession and headed towards escape far away. Although the golden light was fast, it was still unable to determine the location of Elder Elixir. After chasing him for a while, he watched Elder Elixir go away. But Sun Qinyang could see clearly at this moment that this golden light turned out to be a golden rock bird. Before she landed, the golden rock bird had already turned around. There was a mile across the road, but that sharp gaze was already making Sun Qinyang's whole body tingle. She was in mid-air, although her demonic power had been restrained. Sun Qinyang didn't even have the slightest desire to escape. Call out. Suddenly, a sound broke through the air, and Jinpeng was already standing in front of Sun Qinyang. I feel a lot of monster aura from you. Are you the one who killed thousands of monsters? Jinpeng spoke human words with a cold tone. Sun Qinyang didn't dare to express her anger and said quickly, Demon King Mingjian. I was coerced by the Yuanying ancestor, so. Humph. Jinpeng snorted coldly, and his giant wings shook, trapping her with demon power. You can hurt demons at will, but I will not hurt people at will. You humans have always been crafty, so I will let the humans come and deal with you. As soon as she finished speaking, Sun Qinyang's body suddenly flew up and followed the golden light away. The speed was so fast that the strong wind in the air made half of Sun Qinyang's pretty face hurt. Even if she is in the Dan formation stage, she cannot resist the strong wind, which is enough to show how fast this golden rock is. But at such a fast speed, Elder Elixir was able to escape. One can imagine how powerful the ancestor of nascent soul is. Sun Qinyang's face was ashen. Looking at the rapidly retreating mountains and forests below, she smiled bitterly in her heart. Why was she so miserable? If I have a chance, I will definitely go back to Yunzhou. The worst case scenario is that I will run out of life and die in Yunzhou, and then be buried with my two brothers. Just as she was saying this in her heart, her body suddenly stagnated. Only then did she realize that Jinpeng had also stopped and was still landing slowly, as if he was looking for a place to stay. She was extremely curious, did such a demon king still need to find a place to land? Taking a closer look, I was shocked again. I saw some simple houses below, which looked quite old. By the way, this demon king said to let humans deal with me. Is there anyone in this mountain village? Just as she was wondering, she suddenly saw two people coming out of the stone house on the side of the mountain. Looking at the figure, it seems a little familiar. And Jinpeng also saw the two of them, and his speed suddenly increased. Before Sun Qinyang could react, she felt she lost control of her body and was thrown to the ground. At the same time, Jinpeng also transformed into a human and landed on the ground. This man killed many monsters for no reason. He said he was coerced. Please help me find out if he is lying. If it is true, I will kill him and avenge those monsters. Just as Jinpeng finished speaking, he heard the woman in front of him scream. Sun Qinyang, why is it you? Sun Qinyang raised her head. The strong wind had already blown her hair like a chicken coop. But she couldn't believe it and murmured, Mengwei, it's you. When she raised her head, her messy hair did not cover half of her grimace, which made Mengwei exclaim again, how could you become such a ghost? After saying that, she stepped forward and helped Sun Qinyang up. Niao was stunned for a while. You know each other? I know you, of course I know you. A bird, why did you capture her? Mengwei thought Niao had captured Sun Qinyang from Yunzhou. After all, when she left, Sun Qinyang was still the head of the Lingjian sect. Sun Qinyang was a little at a loss. What's the harm in making faces in front of strangers? There is no limit to dreams. Warm reminder, if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding.